Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today I am in celebration of officially it being fall, drawing a pumpkin, and we're doing a cut pumpkin. I actually found a few different reference images that I want to use to possibly make a set. I think it'd be cute to make maybe a sticker sheet or a little print, or even maybe some memo pads or sticky notes in a set with a bunch of little cut pumpkins. So this was my first time since before my vacation in August. So we're like a month and a half since I worked with alcohol markers. And it was a little tricky getting back into it, but I do think this one came out alright in the end. I started here with the colored pencil because I didn't know what the sketching process was going to be like, so I didn't record it. The one thing I did do, and again, I've said this before in other videos where I might have done something similar, I'll be completely transparent. I did put the reference image on my tablet and sort of briefly went over the outlines just so I knew where to put it. And then I hated it, so I erased it and sketched it in myself with pencil. So I don't think this looks completely accurate to the reference image. I tried to copy the seed positions and the size of the seeds and the shapes of the seeds as best as I could, but it's not completely accurate, and that's fine. That's not really the point here. I think if I would have I don't know, printed this out and used carbon paper or something, I could have gotten more accurate, but that wasn't really the vibe I was going for anyway. It's okay for it to be a little bit different, and especially a little more whimsical, not hyper realistic. So yeah, that was how I got to the colored pencil stage. I just used the colored pencil once I did my sketch and lightened up the sketch and then put the colored pencil on top just so I could see what I was doing still. And I did end up going back over with colored pencil once all the alcohol marker was laid on. So you'll see that towards the end. I started with the greens. This one felt a little bit overwhelming because for compared to the outside of most fruit, it's a bit more detailed with the various seeds and the shape and chunkiness of the flesh. So I was feeling a bit overwhelmed. So I was like, okay, what should I start with then? Should I start with the orange? But then I just couldn't think of how I would transition from the orange to the green. It just wasn't making sense in my mind. I couldn't imagine it. The orange in the middle is darker in some spaces and lighter in some spaces. So I just didn't know what to do at first. So I decided to go with the green. I knew what I could do with the stem. The stem seemed like the easiest part. I really like the texture of this pumpkin stem, where it's sort of I don't know, it's kind of almost geometrical. I don't know how to describe it. It looks like tree bark more than I don't know, the typical jack-o'-lantern stem. So I was like, okay, we'll start there with a really light green and then just keep darkening it up. And then I was already holding a green, so I was like, okay, let's just do the seeds next. And the seeds were actually quite enjoyable to do. I think it was sketching them out that was the most stressful because I didn't know where they were going to be, what shape they should be. But then once I got that down, coloring them in was quite fun, turning them into 3D looking shapes with some dark spots. Some darker values were from shadows and some were just from more color in the seeds. So it was interesting to use the really light yellowy green and then some just straight up yellow. This is not the lightest yellow I have, but the second lightest yellow I have to blend everything out. And then after this point, I think I went in with 2 other greens, but the darkest green I was very minimal about because I knew I wanted to go back in with colored pencil. But as you can see here, I'm just constantly switching. I just ended up for a lot of these different colors, not just for the green and the yellow of the seed, but you'll see with the pumpkin later too, the flesh. see with the pumpkin's flesh later with the oranges as well. I just took the caps off and I basically just held the markers in one hand, or like when I laid down the green, I wanted to be more accurate. So I had the green in my right hand, but when I laid down the yellow to blend it out, it was just blending out, so I could hold both in my hand. So at some points, I do have two markers in one hand, and it just sped up the process a little bit. And the whole time I was doing this, I was thinking like, oh, there's some really like much lighter spots on these seeds, and how am I gonna preserve the light spots when it's a pretty small area and I know the marker is gonna bleed anyway? So I ended up just going for it and adding in the lighter spots later, or like the lines. You'll see again at the end. I did a little bit of Holbein white color pencil, soft white, and then for the brightest bits I did the Uniball gel pen. And actually, as I was drawing this, my room was a little bit dark because it was a really cloudy day. Oh, finally feeling like fall in Tokyo. And I was putting down the highlights, or really anything really, and I couldn't see much of a difference. But on video, and now in the daylight, if I look at it again on the paper, they look a lot more bright. So I think that adds to the whimsy of it, the sort of stylized nature of it, adding a lot of contrast. So that's okay in the end, but as I was doing this, you could see, like, you can see I'm preserving a tiny bit of that lightest orange as I'm putting like the mid-tone orange all over. And at the time, it didn't look like enough contrast, which is why I went over it with the white later. But actually looking at it now, like, if it looks like this in person as it does in this video now, I probably wouldn't have added anything on top, but it's alright. Again, it looks a little bit more like more than real life, right? And I decided it needed a bit more yellow. Those, what are they, carotenoids, or whatever makes carrots orange. That is what's in this pumpkin, obviously. So I added a whole bunch more like really bright yellow, vibrant yellow, that I did not swatch at the bottom initially. I just went and grabbed some more. And then I went in at this point with a slightly darker orange. I thought this would be it, but then as it dried, there was less and less contrast, of course, because it goes on darker than it dries. So once it dried, I went in with even darker colors, but that's alright. I swatched out a whole bunch of different orange shades at the bottom there, as you can see. So I was ready. I expected it, but I was shocked how less contrast there was after just a minute. I don't know if that shows up on video, but I was like, dang, it's still looking really flatter than I expected. So I just kept going in with slightly darker colors. Same as my usual process, right? Like start from light, then go to dark, and towards the end I might switch back and forth, just adding more things as I need to, but generally speaking, we start with the lightest and go dark. And this felt almost a little scary. Like, this felt like it was gonna be too dark, which I know I say in like almost every video, but once it dried, it really wasn't that bad, especially if I blended it out with that mid-tone orange. Then it lightened it up quite a bit, because I often put like all of it, I put the lighter color on top, which sort of lifts the pigment a bit, which you can do to a degree. You don't want to do that too much because a paper can only take so many layers. But yeah, between drying and then blending it out, it wasn't too harsh, and this is where I felt like it started coming together and actually looking like the flesh of the pumpkin. Again, I wasn't trying to be like super accurate to the reference image, just wanted the feeling of like pumpkin flesh, right? And I like adding in those tiny little details, like those little lines and dots, because it makes it look so much more like real instead of like perfect and plastic. I did also enjoy going in with this dark brown because I was like, there's parts here that look basically black. And I don't want to go in with straight black, especially if I print it. I mean, I could always adjust it digitally, but if I print it on glossy paper, it tends to print darker. Actually, I feel like my printer anyway really ups the contrast a lot. So that means darker shades get darker and lighter shades get lighter. Not to say I couldn't edit it again to like make sure it prints the way I want, but I rarely use straight black anyway. I have one black marker and I last used it doing Halloween candy, which is artificial black. So I didn't need the black anyway. I think this was plenty dark. And same kind of thing where if I blended it out with another color over it, it would lighten up anyway. So at this point I went in with the white colored pencil. Again, in person, it did not look this bright, but I understand I should probably be drawing in better lighting. So that's a bit on me. And then we have the gel pen here, which again, I kept going over because I was like, dang, I can't see it. Now I can see it, and honestly I think it looks good. I think it looks cute. It's, again, a little bit more contrast, I think, than the reference image. I would really like to get more light colored pencils that actually layer opaquely on top of this kind of marker, but I don't have anything apart from the white. Even the Prismacolors I have such a limited number, and they're not, I mean, they're pretty soft, but they're not quite soft enough to layer opaquely. So I wonder if like oil pastels would layer a little bit more. Maybe I should try it. But yeah, now I'm just going in with that super dark green / brownie color. So I went in with green first, but I think then I went in with a brown, which layered over the green to make it like a dark brown. And then we just went around everything, and that was about it. That was it. And I felt like it was done. It was ready. Like I accomplished what I wanted to do. And like I'd like to make a few more very similar pieces. So that is it. I added just like a couple spots of blending, signed it. Here's a good close-up. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next